The Great British Empire. Truly the pinnacle of sophistication and culture. The largest empire of all time, even at one point controlling 26.35% of the entire world. At its peak, the empire was considered to be one of only a few global superpowers. However, the empire slowly but assuredly dwindled in population, territory, and thus power. Finally, the sun has set upon the British Empire. However, in recent history, new superpowers have emerged to replace the lost old empires. The United States of America and China are probably the countries that come to mind, but a new sort of superpower has emerged recently. An idea forged through the crucibles of the world wars and made to never again plunge the globe into conflict. The idea of common markets and common currencies. Hey everyone, I'm Marco Ayub and welcome to the official first video on the new and improved Bajillion channel. This is going to be the channel where I talk about a bajillion things, from science to geopolitics to my own personal hobbies. I hope you all are really excited just as I am. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and leave a comment because it really helps out the channel. Thanks for all your support. Now, let's get back to the video. Aside from China and the United States of America, arguably the third most economically powerful country is not a country at all, but a union of countries, called the European Union. According to the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, statistics for 2020, the EU has the third largest GDP purchasing power parity. In other words, the total value of its output is only behind China in first and the USA in second. While the EU is undeniably an economic superpower, it isn't considered to be a global power like China or the US. Internal squabbling between member countries means they must focus on disputes between themselves rather than try to exert influence elsewhere. One of these squabbles was the issue of Brexit, which happened just over a year ago. While Brexit is a complex issue, which I may cover in a future video, it undoubtedly left the EU weaker, as the United Kingdom is one of the greatest economic powerhouses in the world. But the UK, which has been trading with other European Union member countries for so long, now needs new friends in a divisive world. One proposition is that it ends up in a CANZUK agreement, a fun acronym for the member countries, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and of course, the United Kingdom. The problem with the European Union that leads to so many arguments is that member nations are very different from each other economically, they use different judicial and voting systems, there are cultural differences, etc., etc. That problem is sidestepped by CANZUK, whose nations are some of the most similar in the world. The CANZUK initiative is to try to create another global superpower besides the USA, China, Russia, and the EU. A superpower that is much more coherent. After all, the CANZUK nations vote very similarly in United Nations assemblies most of the time. Why not make it official? Let's take a deeper dive into CANZUK. As I mentioned previously, CANZUK's proposed member nations are Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. With a combined nominal GDP of $5.812 trillion of economic output and a combined population of almost 133 million people, CANZUK would have around the fourth largest economy in the world after the United States, the EU, and China, comprising of almost 8% of global economic activity. It would also have the 10th largest population in the world, making up 1.7% of the global population. All CANZUK nations are constitutional monarchies with the British monarch as the figurehead. All have similar political structures, although these have over the years become slightly more different, and similar legal systems, except for Quebec and Canada, which is a topic for another video. Their citizens share a common language of English and a common Western-style culture. The nations already share many military and intelligence alliances in the form of the ABCNZ Armies Agreement, and the Five Eyes Agreement, which both include the USA. Needless to say, CANZUK would be a much more ubiquitous group than the European Union and one of the most powerful groups by population and combined economy. While these countries, especially the UK and Canada, play an important role in the world as it is right now, a CANZUK agreement would make all parties much more influential on the world stage. CANZUK advocates for a common market among the member nations. A common market means three separate things. 1. There are no trade barriers between member nations. 2. A common trade barrier is established for non-member countries. And 3. There are no restrictions on the movement of people and resources, including goods and services, among member nations. This is not too dissimilar to the European Union. Many CANZUK enthusiasts also argue that there should be a common training or common license policy. For example, if you were to be a doctor or a lawyer in any one of these countries, you could practice in any of the others without doing any substantial paperwork. According to CANZUK International, which is a group in support for CANZUK, they advocate for, quote, closer cooperation between these four nations so that they may build upon existing economic, diplomatic, and institutional ties to forge a cohesive alliance of nation-states with a truly global outlook. Our proposals ensure that Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom not only sustain economic prosperity and quality of life, but develop travel and employment opportunities for each of their citizens as part of a global initiative. End quote. One of the major reasons for CANZUK is the fear of China's growing influence in the world. CANZUK advocates believe that a united CANZUK trade union and common market would be strong enough to stand up to China and to be less reliant on Chinese goods. And there's good news for those in favor of CANZUK. It's quite popular. According to a 2018 poll by CANZUK International, which included about 13.5 thousand people, there's an over 50% approval rating for CANZUK. In fact, 82% of respondents in New Zealand, 76% of respondents in Canada, 73% of respondents in Australia, and 68% of respondents in the UK show some level of approval for CANZUK, with an average approval rating of about 75%. So, with all of that being pro-CANZUK, what are people saying on the opposite side? Well, when looking at all of these countries on a map, there is one major problem: geography. While Australia and New Zealand are quite close, relatively speaking, these two countries are quite far away from the United Kingdom and Canada. In fact, on average, Australia is a whopping 14,000 kilometers or 8,700 miles away from Canada. For reference, that's over 35% of the Earth's circumference. The distance between Ottawa, the capital of Canada, and Canberra, the capital of Australia, is 16,000 kilometers or 9,950 miles. Many CANZUK skeptics talk about the difficulty in trade between countries that are quite literally on opposite sides of the globe. This doesn't make trade impossible though. In fact, in 2020, Canada and Australia have traded goods valued at $1.6 billion. Another issue with CANZUK is that countries don't trade much with each other as it is already. In 2020, only 5.4% of Canadian trade, 2% of British trade, 12.7% of New Zealand trade, and 4.9% of Australian trade was with other CANZUK members, while China is the largest trading partner in Australia and New Zealand, the second largest trading partner in Canada, and the seventh largest trading partner in the United Kingdom, meaning that these countries are quite dependent on Chinese trade and that to stand up to China might mean a deep economic hit. While these countries might want to trade more with each other, it seems unlikely or even impossible to get rid of trade with China altogether. So what do you guys think? Should CANZUK countries form an alliance together or just stay as it is? Thank you all for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed the first video of the brand new channel. Please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment on your views of CANZUK because it really supports me and supports more content on the channel. If If you have any video suggestions, leave them down in the comments below, and I'll be sure to check those out. See you all next time.